What a crazy year it's been. You know, I was thinking about what one word could describe this past year. What word could even contain it? I mean, going into the new year, we all had so much momentum. Towards the end of 2019, the women's ministry team had completely reimagined how to better reach and minister to the women in our community. They went into an evening-only format, shorter Bible studies, fewer weeks, and in a more intimate setting. It was so refreshing and so well received. Our 2019 Fall Fest was bigger than ever. We hosted a free community event at 2 campuses last year. Also, we had a fantastic men's ministry event called Man Up. Last fall, we came alongside Feed New Mexico Kids to help provide around 3,000 Thanksgiving meals to hungry and homeless kids and their families. Families here in New Mexico that probably would not have had a Thanksgiving meal at all. One of the highlights for me of the end of 2019 was the opportunity my mom and I had to go to the border area between Burma and Thailand because we felt the Lord leading us to a fresh vision for Reload Love to not only build playgrounds, but to start building churches. It was a really incredible ministry scouting trip. On the weekends, my dad was teaching through Romans in a series called Heart and Soul. That was one of our longest and most challenging series. And then on Wednesday nights, he started the New Testament teachings for the Bible from 30,000 feet, a series that everyone looked forward to as we took a high altitude look at every book in the Bible. As you all know, for many years, we've been asking God to provide us with a great campus pastor for our Santa Fe campus. Well, we are so excited to let you know that he's answered that prayer this year with Sam Cruz, who joined our staff from the chapel out of Cleveland, and prior to that, Calvary Chapel, Chattanooga. For about a year, Sam had felt God calling him to serve in Santa Fe. So Sam and his wife and kids relocated there and are enthusiastically serving that campus and that community. Christmas 2019 was nothing short of amazing. We used Wednesdays in December to bring some incredible music to our church with Fernando Ortega and a special family worship night with Battle Drums. And just as we do every year, we pulled out all the stops for Christmas with an incredible production called Ornaments, Christmas Around the World. So at the start of 2020, we were excited by the momentum we were seeing in so many areas of ministry. Around Valentine's Day, we dedicated a service to Reload Love and raising funds for some incredible projects to help support Karen refugees. That ministry was able to fund building 2 churches and a preschool, and also supporting 3 in-country evangelists and meeting some very specific needs for refugee communities. One pastor desperately needed a truck. Another needed this sort of large sunken area filled in so that he could provide more housing for refugees. One desire that we've had for many years, but especially since the start of Freedom Celebration, is to see greater unity and relationships build among the churches throughout New Mexico. Well, this year we extended that even further as we partnered with the Luis Palau Association to put together an incredible event called Renew Gathering. We had a lunch for pastors from across the state, plus we hosted a powerful night of prayer and worship for believers from churches across a variety of denominations. Jesus Culture joined us with Chris Kilala, and Josh White spoke. It was incredibly inspiring. Something else that was really kind of mind-blowing was the fact that my parents were invited with Joel Rosenberg and other evangelical leaders to meet with the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia. I mean, that kind of invitation is really God-ordained. So yeah, the year 2020 started out with incredible momentum, generosity, and vision. We really felt that God was allowing the influence of this ministry to expand. I want to take a second to thank each and every one of you for your continued prayers for my dad. 2020 saw some planned and some unexpected medical emergencies that arose with my dad, including a subdural hematoma, and we couldn't be more grateful for your prayers as we got through that scary situation with a lot of faith and prayers. In the midst of all that, we had incredible support in the pulpit. our pastoral staff filled in at our Wednesday services as many pastors and speakers helped us for our weekend services. I had an opportunity to teach as well as Eric Metaxas, Raul Reese, Daniel Fusco, and Tony Clark. So my dad really took the time to recover, and he was anxious to get back in the pulpit and start teaching again. But then something even more unexpected happened. I mean, we didn't think that was even possible, did we? COVID-19. And nothing has been the same since then. In early March, New Mexico shut down and we had to close the church. But of course, we knew right away that even though in-person services had to be put on hold, ministry could not be put on hold. So we quickly realized that we needed to do three things. Number one, take care of our staff and keep them safe, but also keep them working. Number two, take care of our congregation, meaning meet their needs, spiritual, obviously, but also physical and material. And number three, we had to figure out Easter. So I guess we basically had to reinvent how we were doing church and ministry. One of the things that we created to meet the practical needs of people in the midst of the pandemic was the Kindness Campaign. We redirected about half of our staff to make personal phone calls to every single person in our church. We called every one of them to see how we could pray for people and meet any needs that they might have. Our staff completed over 6,000 phone calls. We also made our campus collection points for people to drop off paper goods, hygiene items, non-perishable food items, and items for children. So we redirected some of our staff to collect, clean, and put together care packages and even do doorstep deliveries throughout Albuquerque and Santa Fe. With basically our entire community, our entire state under a stay-at-home order, we knew that the risk for loneliness, isolation, depression, and just everything that goes along with having so much idle time would be a huge concern. So we got a live online broadcasting platform up and running within a week so that we could connect with people every day during the pandemic. We went live every day at 2 p.m. with Table Talk, Family Talk, Book Talk, and our women's ministry hosted Girl Talk. Matt Perolo and I enjoyed our time doing Just Talk. Our preschool put together Preschool at Home. My wife did Workout at Home, and along with each of these live programs, whoever was hosting took comments and questions from viewers. We really tried to use this time to connect with people and make them feel seen and heard. And we filled in the rest of the broadcast time with relevant teachings from my dad and a lunchtime worship session with battle drums. I mean, it was a ton of work, but we had so much fun doing it all. With that live online broadcasting capability, we were able to reinvent church. Even though we couldn't have in-person church services on site, we were determined to have live church. We wanted our online services to sort of mimic what our congregation was experiencing at home as opposed to broadcasting from an empty sanctuary. And so we created Calvary Church at Home. Our team transformed the main stage into a living room set, and we recorded weekend and midweek services, and then we would broadcast them online in a simulated live format. We wanted to make sure we continued to minister to the kids as well, so we began filming and broadcasting the Calvary Kids online program with Made for Kids worship and Bible dramas and lessons. And we saw our online numbers skyrocket, showing us that we had in effect created an entirely new campus for our online community. For about 3 months, we broadcast services from our Calvary Church at Home set on stage on our live platform and on Facebook and YouTube. And we have a team of pastors and servants who work in the live chat and prayer features during services, again, so that we can maintain that kind of personal connection that you can only get at church. One of the series that we launched in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic was called Shelter in Grace. That was after a few weeks of teachings directly related to the shock of coronavirus. In this teaching series through the book of Job, my dad taught about what it looks like to move beyond just receiving God's grace to really taking refuge in it. And then on Wednesday nights, we launched a series called Fact Check. about how even though fear and mistrust are a natural response in times of trouble, God wants us to develop our faith in those times. We are to literally fact check our fear with faith. We looked to the heroes of the faith in Hebrews 11 to cultivate a faith that overrides fear. Just as we were getting into a new rhythm with the Kindness Campaign and all the online programs and worship services, Easter weekend was still looming large. We typically have a large Good Friday service for a couple of thousand people in our amphitheater. Well, that wasn't possible. So we decided to pre-record and broadcast our Good Friday service online. We were also able to broadcast the service at noon on 4 different TV stations. We set up a much-needed blood drive with all the COVID-safe precautions as an extension of our Kindness Campaign. Every Easter, we typically host New Mexico's largest Easter worship service at the UNM football stadium with upwards of 20,000 people. But this year, the stadium was closed. Every alternate location we looked at was closed and mass gatherings were forbidden. But we just couldn't let go of Easter that easily. So our team gathered together and discussed what it would look like to have a drive-in Easter service in our parking lot. And so many questions began to surface. Would the governor let us do this? Would people come? And as we began making plans, it seemed that we got a yes to every single thing that we asked for. It seemed that every step of the way, the Lord had gone before us. We transformed the parking lot into a drive-in theater with video on 2 huge screens and audio live broadcasted on Star 88. We rented an elevated stage in the center of the parking lot. We had golf carts driving through the rows with coffee and donuts. It was probably the highlight of the whole pandemic. Everyone had a blast. But for everyone who was hesitant or high risk, we pre-recorded an Easter service, the same worship and the same teaching, and we broadcasted it all online at our regular service times. And again, 4 network TV stations aired the service on Easter Sunday. That Easter message of hope reached more people than we would have ever reached with our usual stadium service. It was amazing and a true testament of God taking something that Satan meant for bad and using it for good. About a month after Easter, and with the incredible response that we got to our Easter drive-in service, we just knew we had to find a time to do it again. So on Mother's Day weekend, we did drive-in services one last time. I mean, why not, right? It was a lot easier the second time. We added a car decorating contest and gave away incredibly nice gift baskets to the best decorated cars at each service. By the end of May, the ban on mass gatherings was finally lifted. I mean, come on, can I get a hallelujah or what? And we were allowed to once again gather in person at 25% capacity. That meant that our Calvary Church at Home set on the sanctuary had to be taken down. But our online services were so well attended that we didn't want to lose out on that online presence that we had cultivated with an entirely new congregation. So our video team transformed our video studio into this online church service set in about 10 days. The last weekend in May brought something that we had been looking forward to all year. Finally, we were able to be together again for in-person services. It took a ton of work to put the COVID-safe practices in place, and we did a lot to communicate those things to our congregation. We did our best to make the on-campus experience completely contactless, with signs, masks, and social distancing measures put in place. And we made printed resources available in our app. We launched a new check-in app for Calvary Kids, and we made services family-friendly in the amphitheater and hub so that people had choices. We added an LED video screen in the amphitheater to enhance the worship experience for those who preferred to stay outside. We're now under a 40% capacity limit, but we've seen attendance increase every single week. When you get down to it, there's just no substitute for being with other people in person and worshiping Jesus Christ. Starting in June, we decided to use our Westside campus to host a free movie night every Friday called Summer Movie Nights. Movie theaters, unfortunately, are still closed in New Mexico, and it's been so good to offer our community a fun night out. We have a different theme every month, like superhero movies, Pixar favorites, summer comedies, and after every single movie, one of our pastors shares a brief gospel presentation and gives people an opportunity to respond to the life-changing message of the gospel. Along the way, we've added snack packs and food trucks, and it's still going. Now we call it Friday Night Flicks. Even in the absence of a public health crisis, New Mexicans really struggle with food and economic insecurity. The church unity that we forged in the fall of 2019 made a huge impact in our state when we were able to partner together with several churches and Convoy of Hope to do a drive-through food relief event. Car after car, family after family drove through to pick up free groceries for an entire week. We were able to help thousands of New Mexico families. We hadn't been back on campus for too long when Father's Day weekend came around, but we did want all the dads who came to service to feel honored and to have a little fun. We celebrated Dad's Glory Days with some fun photo ops in the foyer and a really special music and video tribute during service. During that same time, we had just launched a new teaching series called 2020. Seeing Truth Clearly. My dad is teaching through the core doctrines of the Christian faith in order to direct us to look through the right spiritual lens, the lens of truth. As we see a really frantic and confusing clash of philosophies and ideologies battling right before our eyes, it's more important than ever to see truth clearly. For our midweek service, we wrapped up the Bible from 30,000 Feet, a series that stretched more than 2 years. We had a faithful group of frequent flyers who had participated week after week in a rewards program. They got miles for checking into service and taking a weekly quiz about the teaching. So, at the final service in the series, we recognized the frequent flyers who had earned the most points and selected the winner of a trip for two to travel to DC and tour the Museum of the Bible with my dad.
Sentence or two, tell me what your largest takeaway was throughout this series.
Biggest lessons I've learned over the 2 years are better patience, which I absolutely needed, humility from some of the lessons, the ultimate eyes on the prize. I want to make it to my salvation. I want to honor Jesus, and I want to honor the teacher who's given me more than any teachings I've ever had in my entire life. I needed this. I really needed it. It was a great series. Thank you, Skip. I'm walking a better walk.
After the conclusion of Bible from 30,000 Feet, we dove right back into Expound with the book of Judges as we study the Bible verse by verse. Our women's ministry, Sheology, was able to come back to campus too with a Bible study called Holy Moments that was based on one of my mom's books that was recently reprinted. We saw over 350 women participate either on campus or via our live stream. And speaking of live stream, we're investing a lot into cultivating and ministering to the people who have joined us online in this season. In fact, we're now treating that audience as its own campus and community that we call Calvary Church at Home. Throughout the pandemic, this audience has only grown. Our YouTube channel has gone from 28,000 to over 47,000 subscribers since April of 2019. And across all online platforms, we estimated that almost 75,000 people are watching service every single weekend, from Albania to Albuquerque. So now we have a website dedicated to getting information and resources to those folks, and we recently rolled out online connect groups and online LifeTrack classes for that campus. So even with the pandemic, we're not slowing down. As a matter of fact, we're only ramping it up and reaching more people than we ever have before. All of the incredible new things we're doing with media in the midst of the pandemic perfectly pairs with our Connect with Skip Heitzig media ministry, which Dunham & Company has helped us continue to grow and refine. In fact, my dad's teaching can now be watched on TBN, which is huge. Here's Chip Lusko to share a little bit more about the broadcast side of our ministry.
Well now, 2020, that's been a surprise, not what we expected. Still, all things work together, and we took full advantage of Connection Communications of the quarantine because Time spent listening for media and watching just exploded in 2020 due to the lockdown. So we produce content for people to hear and see, such as the Plagues, Promises, and Pandemic special that Pastor Skip produced with Joel Rosenberg while he was quarantined at his home in Jerusalem. And then Easter rolled around and no stadium this year, but we made full advantage. We took our TV specials from Good Friday and Easter Sunday and put it on 3 local affiliates. We had 600 people request survival kits spiritually, and that was fantastic. We have similar plans, by the way, for Christmas of this year. And Skip did a fantastic message that was perfect for such a time as this, called Shelter in Grace, and we saw terrific response worldwide to those teachings. Well, the Connection Communications income went up 30% in 2020 over 2019, and frankly, that was a pleasant surprise. We also expanded our TV program to the Trinity Broadcasting Network, and we are seeing 50,000 people view it each week according to weekly ratings. Well, 2021, more of the same. We're hoping to expand our YouTube presence significantly. Our income we hope to raise 15%. And as always, we are dedicated to tell people what's next with Jesus Christ in 2021.
Every week, new things seem to be opening in New Mexico, and things are really picking up across all of our physical campuses. Calvary College added on-site classes to this fall term in addition to the online classes that they offer. And that ministry has a partnership with Veritas and Calvary Chapel Universities for students who are working towards an accredited degree. Our marriage ministry had over 40 couples participate in a marriage enrichment workshop to cultivate stronger and healthier marriages. And Spectrum, our student ministries, just had a 2-day in-town retreat at our Westside campus called The Weekend. And again, we've seen the fruits of our relationships with other churches as we partnered for Fair Cares, a free community event at our fairgrounds that distributed groceries, offered flu shots, and the opportunity to donate blood. And with all the really tragic unrest and aggression around race relations and the after effects of the country being shut down, we were led to dedicate a weekend towards recognizing and responding to racism. Tony Clark joined us via Skype for that teaching and discussion called The Church and Racism. And more recently, we dedicated a weekend to honoring, encouraging, and praying for all of the law enforcement agents that keep this country safe. Both the Law Enforcement Weekend and the Weekend with Tony Clark were an incredible opportunity for us to exhibit to our community and the church how much Jesus Christ loves us. At the beginning of this video, I shared with you that I was trying to pick one word to describe this past year, and now I want to ask you the same question. What one word would you use to describe this past year? Earlier, I said momentum. You know, you would think that with everything that happened that was completely out of our control, that we would have lost momentum, that we would have lost ground, that we would have seen tithing decrease, that we would have seen a reduced number of people that we were reaching with the gospel. But we didn't. Not at all. I guess I would sum up the year with an image, though, instead of a word. Throughout all this, my dad has frequently said that God rules the universe with his feet up. We're just here on his footstool, right? We scrambled through all this as best we could, as obediently as we could, while resting in the fact that God is ruling it all with his feet